I'm a Plant Gals, and today I'm going to be talking about what plant is right for you, or me. But the title will say me, but it's all about you. So essentially what I'm going to do is I have a list of the basic types of plant parent that I could kind of think of, and I'm going to go through them, and we're going to talk about the different types of plants that would be right for that type of plant parent and why you might fit into each category. To start, I was on the river this weekend and I did get a little bit of a embarrassing sunburn, but I just finished finals, my last finals ever. I have a degree. Wow! And I really just wanted to get this video out and film this video because over on my Instagram, which I post a lot more on than my YouTube, I got my followers to vote and they wanted a video on what plant is right for me, you. So that's what I'm gonna be doing today. I've written everything down and taken notes. So I'm gonna go through the notes and we're gonna talk about everything. I will try and add in timestamps somewhere if there's a particular section that you really want to skip to, if you know, like, okay, that is my type of plant parent. There's gonna be three main categories: the overlover, the underlover, and the savvy plant parent. And then I'm gonna go through a couple of kind of bonus categories at the end. This is just based on my own personal experience working at a plant shop, the types of people that usually come in, how I kind of categorize them in my head, and what I try referring them to. Everybody's gonna have different taste. Just because you fit into one of these categories doesn't mean that what I'm gonna tell you are the only things you can grow. So please don't think that just because I say that these are the things you should grow, or if you fit into one of these categories, you have to stay in this category. I definitely fit into one or a few of these categories more than others, and I very much so grow things all over the map. I think that comes with time and experience, but let's say you're a brand new plant parent, you're looking up what plant is right for me and my life. Well, I have a list for you. If I look down, those are my notes. I'll try and edit it out the best I can, but I talk a lot and I might be talking while I'm looking and I might not want to edit it out. So let's start with the overlover. Now, the overlover is kind of a fun one because there's a lot of plants that would be considered like fussy or harder to take care of, but not for the overlover. The overlover is someone who's frequently checking on their plants. They walk by and they miss their plant, or they're always thinking about their plants. It's not something that they're ever gonna forget exists. They know where all their plants are. They know what they own. The overlover really is somebody who unfortunately kills plants because they overwater them. Now, this is something I see a lot. In fact, overwatering is probably the #1 reason I see that people kill their plants, and it's not on purpose. I find that it's due to a lack of information. People think that plants need a lot more water than they actually do, and don't understand that plants actually need to dry out at least a little bit between waterings. It depends on the type of plant. But these plants need to dry out the least, and I would say are the most forgiving when they're put in an overwatering situation. Now, I still don't recommend overwatering these plants, but I picked these plants because you might feel more secure as an overlover if you have a bunch of plants that like to be watered more often, and then you worry about them less. I also have written down that the overlover tends to be the type of person who instantly runs to Reddit whenever they have a brown tip on one of their plants or a yellow leaf. There are so many beautiful varieties of Calathea and Maranta. Calathea and Maranta, some of my favorites for sure. I like the rattlesnake Calathea or Calathea lancifolia. It has a very little sawtooth shaped leaf. I also really love Calathea orbifolia, even though it's a bit more of a fussy one. In terms of the Maranta, I like, if you can find Maranta gold line, it's a little bit more uncommon, very beautiful. Obviously the red stripe and the lemon lime or green stripe Maranta are beautiful for a reason and very popular for a reason. I do recommend that, especially with the Calathea, but Maranta too, if you do have some purified water, they might prefer it more than your tap water. So peace lilies, there are actually way more peace lilies. People think that peace lilies are old lady plants and they are boring. That's not true. There's a lot of really beautiful types of variegated peace lily, like Spathiphyllum domino. Spathiphyllum is the genus of peace lily, so Spathiphyllum domino. I really like Spathiphyllum mojo. Those are both beautiful. Spathiphyllum jessica is also beautiful. Those are another good one. Orchids, I mostly recommend kind of like your like superstore orchid. So Phalaenopsis, for most people, if you want to get into some funkier orchids, some kind of like step up orchids could maybe be like Cattleya or Dendrobium, or maybe even like Bulbophyllum if you can find them. I would say that like the Dendrobium is probably the next most common orchid after the Phalaenopsis, but there's a lot of really beautiful varieties and colors of Phalaenopsis. Fittonia, these are our nerve plants. There's a lot of really beautiful ones. They have very different names. My probably favorite of all time is the pink star. Some have green veins, some have red veins, some have pink veins. They're all beautiful, but yeah, the pink star is probably my personal favorite. The pink star is a little hard to grow outside of a terrarium. They do prefer that little bit more humidity, but pink star and any Fittonia in general are a great option for somebody that wants to give that plant that extra love. Alocasia, not an alocasia lover for sure, but I do think that alocasia are great for the overloving plant parent. Some of my favorite varieties are Alocasia frydek. If you feel very crazy and you want to go for it, variegated Alocasia frydek is beautiful. Don't come at me in the comments saying that variegated Alocasia frydek is technically just Alocasia frydek and that the Alocasia frydek non-variegated has a different name. I don't care. I can call it whatever I want. Anyways, sorry it's a little bit mean, but I don't care. There's also, if you're a little bit nervous to get into some really finicky alocasia, I really recommend Alocasia Golden Bone, one of my all-time favorites that I sell at the plant shop. Some other fun alocasia are Alocasia Dragonscale, Alocasia Mahrani, Alocasia cuprea. Honestly, there's so many and they're really having their moment right now. So if you're an overloving plant parent, then you have the ability to be with the trend, because oh my gosh, our alocasia are really trendy right now and so many of them are coming out variegated. Alocasia Black Velvet is another beautiful one. The Alocasia Black Velvet variegated is pink, so you gotta love that. Very expensive, but just thought I'd throw that in there. If you wanted some bigger indoor plants, I would say out of the ones I've mentioned already, probably the Calathea and the peace lilies would be the biggest. Probably the Fittonia are the smallest, but let's talk about a couple big ones for you overlovers. Fiddly fig, a little bit of a pain to grow for surezies, but if anyone can do it, I know it's you. So yeah, my mom has a couple really big fiddly figs. They're gorgeous houseplants. They do not like to really dry out in my opinion, and they can be a little bit finicky, but I threw it on the list. Also, indoor fruit trees are so fun. They like a lot of light and they definitely are thirsty because they're really working hard to produce the flowers and the fruit. Some great options for indoor fruit tree. Probably my favorite of all time is the Calmondan orange. Also, a Myers lemon does well, Myers lime, and there's a ton of funky little options. There's even some dwarf varieties like a dwarf pomegranate. Those are all great, but probably my favorite would definitely have to be the Calmondan orange. Really good. They're kind of tart and they're so good for cocktails and putting them in kind of little summery drinks and stuff like that. And then my last plant for you overloving plant parents is actually the oxalis. This is one that I kind of see in plant shops, but I don't see them all the time. There is the red oxalis or the purple oxalis. I actually have one. They're beautiful. They flower all the time, which is really cute. There's also some really funky ones like I think it's called an Iron Cross oxalis. They also open and close like the Marantas and the Calatheas prayer plants, and they are beautiful. Underlovers, it's your turn. You probably want a plant that you like the look of, but you don't really want to think about caring for it that often, and you want something where if you kind of forget about it for a little bit, it's not going to freak out and die on you. It's going to be a little bit hardier. Probably for you, maybe watering once a week is too much. You're probably looking for a plant that likes to be watered close to every 10 days or longer. And you want a plant that's really not going to throw a fit. You just want something that is easy. When you remember it exists, you water it, and it's pretty easy to keep track of. And honestly, I have a pretty good list. I feel like sometimes these lists can be really boring, and it'll start with the more boring ones a little bit, but it should get pretty good. So I have just in general succulents. And I'd like to start by saying, people freak out and they're like, I'm so bad at taking care of plants, I killed a cactus, or I'm so bad at taking care of plants, I killed a succulent. They're actually quite difficult sometimes because we don't let them dry out enough. A lot of people water them way too much, way too early, or they let them dry out way too much. So like I said with the last one, just if anything really sticks out to you, do your research. There are so many succulents, so many. Probably one of my favorite right now is the Portularia afra, sometimes called the elephant bush. It's a succulent tree. It's very similar to a jade, which is another really good option for this list. I really like the ogre ear jades, they're probably my favorite. But yes, the Portularia afra is like these really cute little trees, elephant bushes. They like a lot of sun, they like to dry out. They're perfect for the underloving plant parent. But there's also just like your really common succulents like your Echeveria and your Aeonium. There are so many colors of succulent. I could spend a whole, well, more than one video just listing all the different types of succulent. I'll try and put in some assortments so you can get an idea, but honestly, they're really great, especially if you have the light for them. If you don't, get a grow light. My next one is cacti. I know that's once again kind of what everybody says for the underloving plant parent. I just gotta start out with the basics though. There are some beautiful cacti out there, kind of in the same vein as cacti, and like the spiky cacti, which I don't really know the names of. I guess euphorbia are also kind of in this category as well. Like the African milk tree is a great option, which I believe is a euphorbia. There's a lot of really cool euphorbia. Euphorbia and cactus are different, even though they look very similar. But honestly, yeah, any of those types of things, they're gonna do great for you if you want to set them, forget them, water them when they dry out completely. Then there's tropical cacti, which I feel like are very often forgotten. If they're talked about, people talk about mostly, I would say, the Christmas cactus, the Thanksgiving cactus, the Easter cactus, zygo cactus. I have a variegated one. I've been really enjoying it. A fun option if you want to do something a little bit different. They flower sometimes 2 times a year, multiple times a year. They don't always only flower when the tag says they'll flower, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. There's also orchid cactus, which have beautiful massive blooms. I really love orchid cactus. And then one that is, I think, often forgotten is the rickrack cactus or the fishbone cactus. They can get really beautiful orange colors. They can also flower quite regularly. Typically, they're really nice for like hanging baskets or hanging plants. And they're very easy to care for. I love them. Also, kind of in the same vein, if you do like hanging baskets of plants that are like hanging plants that are quite hardy, then you can look at rat tail cactus and monkey tail cactus. Really fun. I do also have a monkey tail cactus. Next, I have some of the more boring ones again, ZZ plants, although there are some cool ones like chameleon ZZ, raven ZZ, ZZ Zenzi. There's a lot of cool ZZ plants. Don't knock it till you try it. Sansevieria, so snake plants, everybody says they're super boring. They're not. One of my favorites is Sansevieria boncel. It looks like a little starfish or even like a little mohawk. There's also variegated Sansevieria boncel. Also, don't come for me in the comments because people argue about whether Sansevieria are Dracaena or not. You can have your own little party. You can tell me your opinion, but don't get mad at me for calling them Sansevieria still, because I'm personally not sold yet. There's also dragon wing Sansevieria, which are so cool. There's your typical Sansevieria. Sometimes people call Sansevieria mother-in-law's tongue. The kind of 2 common names are snake plant or mother-in-law's tongue. Do your research because there's actually a lot of really cool ones. They can also handle a little bit of lower light, but will thrive in high light if you have it. And they put out babies a lot, which is always really cute. I love snake plant, Sansevieria, mother-in-law's tongue, whatever you want to call them. Next, I have another trailing one because I thought that like a lot of the time the underloving plant parents are forgotten about when it comes to trailing houseplants, because we think of like pothos and those types of things that need to be watered maybe around every 10 to 12 days, depending on your conditions, of course. But I wanted to include some that are a little like really friendly for the underwaterer. So my number one choice for that was honestly Peperomia hope. Awesome plant, so cute. I really love Peperomia hope. There are some other options that could be great for you. Dischidia as well can do great, like Dischidia green apple and Dischidia oinantha white diamond. Those ones like to dry out as well. And Hoya in general, I mean, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands of varieties of Hoya. They like to dry out before you water them. Don't let them dry out too much, because if you let them dry out way too much and water them, they will rot. But Hoya can be amazing. Some of my favorites are the heart-shaped Hoya, so like Hoya carrii. I also find any of the basic Hoya carnosas, like Carnosa Crimson Queen, Carnosa Crimson Princess, even some of the splashy ones like Carnosa Wilvergraves Russia or China can be really fun. Carnosa Nova Ghost. Like a Carnosa is a great Hoya. It's the basic for a reason. Even just regular green Carnosa is beautiful. But yeah, so like any of those are great. There's so many Hoya. Like if you want to look up videos on Hoya, oh my gosh. And then my kind of last ones is like I did for the other one where I talked about some bigger plants that might work for you. My choices for this one were a rubber tree, which I find likes to dry out a little bit. Rubber trees are Ficus elastica. So there's the variegated ones like Teneki, Shiverina, Moonshine, and there's also the ruby rubber tree, which is like more the pink vibe. Beautiful. Even the regular, just non-variegated one is a very dark burgundy shape, or it's not shape, colored leaf. Gorgeous, stunner, love her. And then that's kind of what I have for the underloving plant parent. Each of these plants will have different care. If any of them really stick out to you, do some research. And if you really want a plant care video in the future on a specific one that you really liked, like I said, let me know in the comments. Now, I'm going to talk about some honorable mentions. So let's say that you're a savvy plant parent. You're kind of like me, where maybe you know that you're more of an underwater or an waterer, but you love plants, so you don't care, you're going to make it work. Maybe you started buying grow lights for your conditions. You're starting to kind of get the bug that maybe you want an IKEA greenhouse cabinet because you started following too many plant influencers on Instagram. This is for you, and these are my recommendations. I'm gonna guess that you have all the basics. You're sick and tired of pothos, you don't want anymore. And if you do, you want some cool ones. And let's think about what some of those might be for you. So in general, I have variegated versions of the things you already own. Sometimes variegated versions can just be that tiny notch up of a little bit more complex, even though they're the same thing that you've already owned. So maybe you've already had a Monstera deliciosa, but you want to try an albo, or a non-variegated Alocasia frydek, and you want to try a variegated Alocasia frydek. Trying variegated versions of these plants that you've already grown is great because you can start to gain confidence in a little bit more complex plants, but still plants that you're familiar with. So I think that's one really fun way to start upgrading my savvy plant parent. Another thing is trying new genus. Like if you've always grown, let's say Alocasia, maybe you're gonna try and step out into Anthurium, which aren't as hard as everybody says, I promise. And just like really branching out, finding what you like. I find that this part of plant care is hard because you're probably gonna kill more things than usual. For me, it was begonia. I'm like, I wanna own every begonia, and then I killed a lot of them. But I found the ones that work for me now, and it's okay to kill plants at any stage, but especially this stage where you're just experimenting. I also recommend trying to propagate more, getting comfortable with cuttings, because if you do wanna start buying some more expensive plants, potentially buying smaller ones or cuttings could help you get those expensive plants for a lot cheaper. So start doing that, start experimenting that way. And then one fun one that I just like in general is try some cool shaped plants. Philodendron eupii is probably my favorite. It's not a hard plant, but it can seem maybe a little bit intimidating because of the shape. So do some research into some really funky shaped plants, because maybe that could be a new way for you to explore the hobby that you're starting to get a little tired of and want something different. So next I have probably one of my least favorite with love, the basement dweller or the cubicle worker or the I only have north facing windows. These people usually come to my shop and say, I need a plant that can grow out with no light, or I need a plant that can grow in the dark. And the reality is that no plant can do that, but some plants, it's still gonna be a little bit hard, can handle it better than others. Now, if you are one of these people, before I say anything else, get a grow light. There are some really, really small ones. You can check out some on Amazon. There are massive ones or big ones for cabinets. There's huge industrial size ones, but you can even get some that are literally the size for just one plant. And then that'll be perfect because maybe you just want a desk plant in your cubicle and it'll be perfect for just that one plant. And if you don't want to listen to me, this is what is least likely to die if you're that type of person. And don't hate me because they're a little bit boring. ZZ plants, I talked about them. They can handle a lot lower light. Same with Sansevieria. I find that golden and marble queen pothos epipremnum Epipremnum aureum can handle it a little bit better than some of the other vining plants. If you really want that vining plant, they seem to do okay. And lastly, this is not a long list, and I really don't like answering this question because most will probably not do well in general, but I also find that satin pothos, which are Scindapsus, can do quite well as well. I much prefer calling them scindapsus because that's what they are than satin pothos, but you might not only know them by that name. There's a lot of really good ones like Scindapsus pictus or Scindapsus exotica, I think would be great choices. Okay, and then these are my two last categories. The apartment liver, which has been me. Now, I love plants and I squish about as many plants as I can into any apartment that I've lived in, much to the chagrin of my roommates or boyfriend. But these are plants that you probably don't want to get too big. You're happy with it in your little tiny kitchen window. These are my options. Peperomia, lots. So many funky varieties of peperomia. Watermelon peperomia probably being one of my favorite. Once again, peperomia hope, a great option. There's like taco peperomias, and there's so many cool peperomias. I really recommend peperomias. Then I recommend Monstera adansonii. So if you like the Monstera, but you want one of the, Monstera adansonii narrow, the wide form can get quite big. The narrow form is going to be a smaller vining plant. It can still get quite long, but you can cut it back or stick it to the ceiling of your apartment, whatever you kind of want to do. Orchids in general are typically small. There are some giant orchids, but most orchids that you're going to find are going to be small, and I see them owned a lot as apartment plants. And then some other, Hoya and oxalis, both smaller plants that do great and would be great for apartment living. And then lastly, this is one of my favorite types of people that come into the shop, the gifter, or also known as the nervous boyfriend. So these are people that come into the shop and they want to buy a plant as a gift. And it is for a range of reasons. If there's a reason you can think of, I have had somebody buy a plant for that reason in the plant shop for sure. Here's my recommendation. Pick out a pot you like and that you think your friend or whoever you're buying it for will like, and pick out a plant you think they like based on maybe the conditions they have or the colors. Ask for help in the store. Say, look, I have this friend, I'm doing it for this reason, and they have not much light and they want something that they can't kill super easily and they don't want to think about it very often. And like a great option for sometimes when I have people saying that they have like a woman in their life that's struggling, I recommend Sansevieria Tough Lady because I think that's a really fun one. And it's typically pretty easy to care for and can handle most people's homes. If you really know nothing about the person, stick with something bulletproof for closer to it. And typically I will also write down the care instructions. So if you're in the shop looking for a gift, ask whoever's in the shop to maybe just write down the name of the plant and the care instructions so you can give it to your friend in case you forget, or just the name so that they can do the research on it later. But sometimes it's annoying with a gift, so maybe it's better to just hand them the information. But yeah, like honestly, it really depends on who you're buying it for. I recommend if you're buying for a more plant-savvy person to maybe go over to their house and look at their plants and see if when you go to the plant store, you'd be like, whoa, like I've definitely never seen that in their collection, and then buy that for them. But overall, yeah, that's kind of my number one tips for if you're going into a plant store and looking for a gift. But yeah, those are the types of plant parents that I see the most. What plant is right for you, me, you? I hope that you could figure it out for this video. And let me know down below which one you think is the best for you, or which ones you've tried and failed with, or which ones you'd really like to try in the future. Please also let me know if any of these really stood out and any of the genuses or specific plants you want a care video on. I've never really done that, but I'm thinking about maybe branching out into that in the future. And yeah, this one was voted on by my Instagram followers. So if you do want to follow me on Instagram and have a say in some of the videos that come out, let me know. I'm still pretty small, so if you ever have any questions, you can totally DM me and I can try and help you out with your plants. And yeah, I hope you have a great day and a great week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!